and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. If it matters to you, well, it matters to us. Tonight on the show, we're featuring a very special company called Glucare Health as part of our Eye on Dubai special series. Also in the hot seat tonight is FIA Global. What's happening as far as the healthcare market is concerned in the Dubai UAE region, how our company is responding to the opportunities and the challenges, well, all of that being covered in tonight's interview. It's over to you. Run us through what you're really seeing there on the ground.
Hi Sananda. The health tech industry has been rapidly growing in Dubai following the COVID-led digital shift. Earlier today, I spoke to Ihsan Almarzooqi, co-founder and managing director of Glucare Health, the world's first diabetes clinic to empower its patients with remote continuous data monitoring. Here's what he had to say about Dubai's health tech industry. Tell me about your journey building and launching Glucare Health here in Dubai.
So my background is in healthcare and healthcare provision building. So between myself and my co-founder, we've built many healthcare facilities. I've previously was involved in building 3 diabetes centers. And what I've noticed, including with my own family members who suffer from type 2 diabetes, is that over time, many of the diabetics, even in those facilities which I was involved in building, didn't improve with time. And part of my thought process was, there needs to be a better way in managing a chronic disease. And when I started thinking initially about Glucare, I thought, how do we reinvent the model of care? And part of that was to completely change and create a new novel way. And it includes a large portion or a big amount of digital health as part of that platform. So married those 2 concepts up, traditional care, digital health, and essentially created Glucare as part of that.
How did you navigate COVID as a startup, and what impact do you think the pandemic had on the industry?
So COVID, we were building in the midst of COVID. We weren't open when COVID first hit, so it definitely delayed us. It definitely limited our ability to interact with the regulators and payers because they were busy fighting the pandemic. I think what COVID did in the healthcare space is that it accelerated certain use of digital tools. So for example, telemedicine. There was a huge surge of using telemedicine, and telemedicine existed for 10 years before that. The adaptation of digital health tools was very, very low in the UAE. So I think COVID definitely helped that, but I've always been cautious about using telemedicine as a form of replacing the physical interaction with the patient. Telemedicine is good when it comes to acute conditions. When it comes to managing a chronic condition, it is not as useful as people may think. In the case of a chronic condition, we need data. And what COVID helped us to do is look at all the modalities where we can collect this data and be able to integrate it within a digital solution, and not eliminating the physical aspect of a provider. So we've kind of coupled them all up, and essentially that helps us drive the whole remote continuous data monitoring approach that we have.
How did your company leverage all the technological developments?
So we're agnostic to the actual devices that we use. So traditionally, a patient would come into a facility and see their physician, and they would essentially leave. And until the next visit, the provider or the healthcare system has no idea what's happened to this patient. Now think of it in the context of diabetes. Diabetes is a 24/7 condition. There are 40 parameters that affect glucose. And generally, diabetics self-manage. So beyond that 5 or 10 minute interaction every quarter, The physician generally has no idea what is happening to this patient. So we've changed that model of episodical symptomatic care into a continuous integrated care. So what does that mean in terms of using new technology and new wearables? So every patient at Glucare is given a connected number of connected devices, including a band that looks like this, a continuous glucose monitor, a smart weight scale, a smart blood pressure cuff. And by the time they've left the facility, they've never actually left us. We continuously monitor them. We're streaming data. They're streaming data back to us on a continuous model. We're engaging with them all the time. And when we have these devices producing that fidelity of data all the time, we're able to engage with the patients much better. And when you engage with the patients much better, it leads to better outcomes due to a lot of the behavioral changes aspect that brings about from the use of this technology.
What are the biggest benefits of starting a business here in Dubai, and what growth opportunities can those from the Indian market expect to find in this industry?
So some of the advantages of setting up in Dubai are obviously the regulator is very supportive. So whilst we are in this gray zone in terms of digital therapeutics, this is a new area of digital health. The regulator never, or we, at least when we faced applying for our licenses, the regulator never stopped us. But they are very closely aligned and they want to know what's happening, and we keep them updated and we're engaged with them all the time. And I think a proactive regulator like that certainly helps startups like us, which are trying to be disruptive. I think for Indian startups, I mean, you know, India has a diabetic population of probably over 70 million people. You know, prevalence rates are very similar to those in the Gulf. So collectively between the Gulf countries and India, you probably have, you know, 5 of the top 10 diabetic countries in the world. So I think for Indian startups, and the opportunity is vast. I think they would have a very supportive regulatory system when it comes to health tech in setting up in Dubai, and I think the population here needs solutions when it comes to diabetes, and certainly I think they should be looking at Dubai as a place of business for them.
What are your predictions for the health tech industry over the next few years?
So I think there are going to be some major changes in the healthcare industry, and I think primarily it will be driven by the reimbursement market. So currently we are incentivized or paid in a fee-for-service model. My prediction is that payers will reimburse providers under a fee-for-performance model, and I think we're starting to see that. So that means that providers only get paid if they actually perform and improve patients' conditions, and they don't get paid or they get penalized if nothing changes or they get worse. I think that's the first fundamental change that will happen in the market when it comes to this space. I think the second fundamental change that will happen is that we're going to find more and more cases where a payer or an insurance company will pay for a product, but only if it's used in a setting that uses that product in a very different manner. So the example that I gave of continuous glucose monitors, which are generally expensive, I think there will be a time, or it could be medications too, there will be a time where payers will say, well, I will pay for that product, but only if it's operational in a Glucare-like setting, or in a setting that uses this as part of its fundamental core of managing that patient's diabetes or chronic condition. I think those are the changes that I am seeing happening. Obviously, there has been a lot of evolution in terms of therapeutics and diagnostics in the field of diabetes, but I think specifically I'm seeing more of the change that is happening on the provider side, where they need to innovate, they need to up their game.
As Ihsan mentioned, technology is expected to play a much bigger role in healthcare as we know it, and it's a space that is likely to see much more momentum post-COVID and beyond. Back to you, Sananda.
Thanks so much for that. Let's take a quick break. On the other side is FIA Global in the hot seat. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight in the hot seat is FIA Global. Seema, good having you here on the show. I want to start by asking you to talk to our entrepreneurs about your own entrepreneurial journey and where did it all begin?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Seema Prem, co-founder and CEO of FIA Global. We are an impact fintech that's redefining the way financial services are distributed to low-income customers in India and Nepal. We connect the last mile by providing assisted digital banking services to underserved communities. And in the last 9 years, we have set up around 30,000 banking outlets through which we serve 45 million customers, which are predominantly rural. So Uri, Kargil, Kedarnath, Kutch to Kanyakumari, you would find our centers. This massive banking network, which covers around 15 districts out of 740 in India, is one of the largest outreaches to rural communities, and it handles around $3 billion in transactions annually. All of this is powered by an AI platform, which one for our customers makes the entire process of getting included in the formal financial systems very easy because of the easy to use application interface, which is based on human-centric design. And our backend operations, which handles massive quantities of big data, and using artificial intelligence technologies, which has made our systems predictive, real-time, and risk optimized, leading to high levels of efficiency and cost savings in a business which handles tiny transactions and therefore very low margins.
I would just want to read out some figures. Internet penetration in the country is at about 34%. But if you look at the percentage of the adult population in the country which is unbanked, it's shockingly high at 20%. Where is the gap happening? What's your advice on how that can perhaps be fixed?
Yeah. So I think when we started off, about 800 million of Indians were underserved and unbanked and underbanked, you could say. So now, as per the World Bank Findex data of 2018, it's around 195 million Indians. So yes, the job is getting more difficult. However, the pandemic has kind of spurred a shift from assisted banking to digital contactless digital financial behavior. And so we see more and more of the unbanked people actually approaching us to open bank accounts. However, the current problem is not just about opening a bank accounts. I think early in our growth journey, that was a main problem, that we needed to get as many people banked as possible, because that would be the first step towards meaningful financial inclusion. Now that we have more than you could say 1 billion people banked, so the question is what next? So what we now see is that most of 85% of the transactions in an account are cash-based transactions. People deposit money and withdraw money. People save a lot, but they invest very little, leading to negative real returns. Investments in other products like mutual funds, insurance is very low. The penetration in India is less than 5%. And likewise, credit invisible people, 65% of India is credit invisible, which means largely do not get access to loans from formal financial institutions. So our focus now has shifted from just banking the unbanked to providing meaningful financial inclusion and ensuring that these range of services are provided to them, and they are able to underbanked, I would say unbanked and underbanked customers are able to avail products on our application, and which leads them towards wealth creation and wealth protection.
So how do you really assess creditworthiness? Because if it was the formal banking network, then you would look at things like credit scores, etc. How does it happen then under this model of financial inclusivity?
So typically we do not do on-book lending. So we do off-book lending, which means that we generate leads on behalf of our banking partners. Obviously the lending then happens on the policies of the bank or the non-banking financial institution. However, at our end, what we've done is we've developed an alternate model which looks at the transaction pattern of the customer, takes into consideration the economic activity in the particular area to which the customer belongs to create an alternate score to the credit score. We call it FIA Pehchan, or the financial identity for the customer. Basis that, one, the customer can improve his score to become credit worthy, and two, what we do is then the qualified set of people in that from that score, we pass it on to a banking to our banking partners. So using the score, one, we are able to very clearly identify what is the loan amount. Is the customer qualified for a loan? Two, what is the loan amount that needs to be sanctioned to that particular customer, and what would be the probability of default? Right. We are also working with RBI, and this is one of the areas that we'll be focusing from an advocacy standpoint to kind of provide legitimacy to some of these alternate scoring models. So that banks can just not just depend upon the CIBIL score, but also use some of these models of their fintech partners, which can be used for assessment of credit worthiness of an individual, which will lead to lesser inclusion as far as formal loans go.
My next is a two-part question. One, what percentage of your total borrowers are women? And second, financial information is so crucial for anyone who's in the financial sector, but even more so for the segment that you target. So how do you ensure that the right financial information is being given out?
So like I said, about 45 million customers, about 58% of them are women customers. We also have one of the largest women banking agents in the country, which is at about 18%. Against an industry average, which I think is about 8 to 10%. One of the areas we focus on very early on was getting more and more women banking agents in the field. Data has shown that women, at least at our end, some gender disaggregated data that we have tried to put together has shown that women tend to be more inclusive. Women banking agents tend to be more inclusive. They tend to include more minorities, the elderly, children, and women. And also from a customer service standpoint, because we have received lesser number of complaints, you could say, about women. And that has actually helped ensure that, more and more women get included. So right from the beginning, I think the focus that, yes, we would need to have women banking agents run the center to get more women included really helped. I can give you an example here. We work in a rehabilitated slum on the outskirts of Ghaziabad. So initially, when we went to open the center in that slum, which is about 500 families, the person that the gentleman that we were discussing with for opening the center came out, and a few men ventured out. None of the women came out. The lady of the house who came to greet us actually had a dupatta which was covering her face till here. I couldn't even see her face. 6 months later, we went down to the center after we had opened up the center, and we saw a line of women actually standing in front of their house, in front of a table. They were elderly women, they were children, they were women, and they were opening the opening accounts. And you had this wife who was actually running the center. So that was our first example of what we realized, that how women can actually drive the movement of financial inclusion among women. And after that, we focused on that. Luckily for us also, that the government's agenda clearly had inclusion of women as a key focus area, and the marketing and the visibility that they provided to this particular activity made our jobs a lot more easier.
All right, Seema, thanks for taking the time to join us. Out of time on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. If you have any feedback for us, do let us know. Our contact details on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.